Good morning, afternoon or evening wherever you are. I'm Paul Clark and welcome to my studio. Now, what have I got for you lovely people today? Well, we're going to have a go at this lovely little English village church which was taken from our recent cycling tour. So now let me explain. The leisurely riders, with the emphasis on the word leisurely. Now what it is me and my 4 buddies, for the last 25 years we've been going on a little 4-day cycling tour. Well, except for the last 2 years because of you know what. And we've been all over the place: Holland, France, Belgium, Ireland, and a lot of places in the UK too. And this year we went to the beautiful county of Worcestershire. So some of you might have noticed the likeness to the Worcestershire sauce label. But on this trip, I thought it would be an ideal opportunity to look for the perfect location and the perfect photograph to use in this week's tutorial. And I've got a very short video of our travels. So come and join us on our little adventure and we'll paint this step by step together. Let's go. So we based ourselves at the beautiful city of Worcester. Off we go! And in search for the perfect photo for a watercolour painting. Get out of the way! Now how about this little ford? Or this little lock? Or one of these medieval bridges at Pershore. Now this could make a great painting. And what about this lovely thatched cottage? Or even a steam tractor? Just too much choice. I think we need to stop at the pub to discuss this further. Off we go again! Wrong way. And of course we usually get at least one puncture. And as this is the UK, there's always the possibility of getting soaked. But in the end I decided on this lovely little village church. But we'll take out a lot of the clutter here in the foreground. And we did cycle nearly 93 miles. Okay, so my materials for today. My paper is some Langton Prestige. It's 100% cotton. It's a not cold press finish, £140, and it's on a block, so it won't need stretching. But as always, any decent watercolour paper will do. So for my colours today, I have cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, sap green, cobalt blue, French ultramarine, Payne's grey, burnt umber, burnt sienna, and a touch of alizarin crimson, some white gouache, and from my brush range, a number 12 and number 6 round, and of course my trusty number 3 rigger. So before we start, a few of you have asked me about the paint percentages that I list below. Well, the important thing to remember is that they're only there as a very rough guide. So for instance, mixing a green, I'll usually start with a lighter colour and then just try to mix an equal amount of both colours. In this case, cadmium yellow and cobalt blue. So say I want a slightly warmer green, a little on the olive side, then again equal amounts of the yellow and blue, and then just a touch of red. So I hope that helps. Okay, so here is the drawing template, and as always it's free to download from my website, link in the description below. And I'm going to be working just a little smaller than usual. Off we go! And I'm starting as usual by wetting my sky, and then dropping in a mix of Payne's Grey and Cobalt Blue. Now, it was quite an overcast day, but I'm going to suggest a little touch of blue sky struggling to get through. And while I'm waiting for the sky to dry, I'm using the same grey, but just adding in a touch of yellow ochre, all done wet in wet. And we'll do a few gravestones too. Now for the main body of the church, I've knocked back the yellow ochre just a touch by adding in a little Payne's Grey. And then a little burnt sienna. Right, so now I'm waiting for the church to dry. I'll make a start on the bushes and trees. And for all my different greens, I'm mostly using a combination of cadmium yellow and French ultramarine, but adding in a touch of sap green to brighten some areas. Now, there are far too many mixes to list them all here in the green, but you can clearly see I've used a lot more blue in some of the mixes, especially on the bottom shadow sides, and even dropped in some warm values as well. Now you may ask why I'm painting this tree blue. Well, sometimes I just like to add some interest and exaggerate my colours. Flat brush technique here to pick up some texture from the paper. And of course a bit of splattering. And a little scraping with the wooden end of my brush. And again for the grass bank here, lots of wet in wet and blending of those greens and blues. So if you're wondering why I've chosen to use French ultramarine instead of my usual cobalt blue for mixing greens today, well, French ultramarine is one of the most granulating blues that you can get, and I was really after a lot of texture in the trees. And here I'm simply dropping in some clean water to force a few back runs or cauliflowers. Next, let's just sprinkle in a few granules of table salt into the wet. And then splat some darker value directly on top. Now, just watch this. Through the magic of editing, you'll see the great effect achieved by the salt. Love it. Okay, so now to finish off the rest of the church, and now I'm using my number 6 brush. These little hedges here again, darker value along the bottom edge. Now to create a little bit of contrast, I'm painting in the shadow side of the church. But I'm making sure that this wash is very wet and transparent so I can see the original colour through. Now back to the trees, and here I'm using the dry brush technique, flat to the paper, and get this lovely loose leafy effect, as well as getting some of the light gaps through the trees. And I'm pretty much using the same colours. And here getting a really nice dark value at the bottom to create a high contrast with that bush below. Now this tree over here could be a yew tree. Now an interesting fact about yew trees is that you'll nearly always find one in a churchyard. Now some historians think that this dates back to pagan times when they were considered sacred by the Druids, and then their temples later were replaced by Christian churches. But it's more likely that they were planted because the leaves and seeds are highly poisonous, and it would stop the common people, like me, from grazing their cattle on the church ground. So here is a line and wash that I did a few years ago of St Edward's Church in Stow in the Wold, where the yew tree is nearly growing out of the church walls. Sort of looks like something out of Lord of the Rings. Anyway, on we go with a few shadow details. So now it's time to let this dry. So it's a perfect time for a short break and a glass of Hereford Pale Ale. Cheers! And from the rest of the team, cheers! Now for the roof here, and you often get this lovely red bricky colour on a lot of village church roofs. And then I'm dropping in a touch of burnt umber wet in wet. Shadow side of the tower. And lifting out a few light areas with a damp brush. And then some details on the headstones. Stronger value Payne's grey here for some smaller details and shadows. Trusty rigger time for these thin branches. Nice, quick, broken lines. Now here a little bit of burnt sienna for these dried leaves, And then once it's all dried, I'm simply using a damp tissue to soften and blend a few of those uncomfortable hard edges. Now it's time for those final details which should bring the whole painting together, and I'm just using some Payne's Grey. Just a few final touches with a pastel pencil. And then for those magic little highlights with some white gouache. There we go, all done, and a perfect little memory of our trip. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and you'll give it a go. And perhaps it'll prompt you into having a look through some of your old photos, some of your holiday snaps, and see if you can find that perfect little subject for a watercolour painting. And certainly have a go at this one. Anyway, as always, please don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already, it is free. Leave a comment, I promise you I do read every single one. And of course I look forward to seeing you all again next time. So take care everyone. Cheers now.